Hello, everybody. My name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today we'll be talking about Jezebel. Is it racist? Of course not, but we will be discussing where the notion that Jezebel is racist comes from. And JD Greear made some waves. Actually, Tom Buck is the one who started this whole thing by comparing Kamala Harris to Jezebel. However, I don't think he anticipated that this would grow into a huge controversy within the Southern Baptist Convention. So that is what we're talking about today. JD Greear chimed in, adding his commentary on the situation, saying, I realize that some pastors are likely unaware of the history of certain racial stereotypes in calling or comparing our vice president to Jezebel. But that doesn't make such statements any less unwise. There are times we will critique policies, but that should not include personal attacks on a newly elected official God has told us to honor and pray for. Let us speak clearly and boldly for righteousness, but in a way that honors what the scriptures say about honoring our leaders. We don't correct one sin through another. So that's what JD Greear tweeted in a thread. So, where does the notion that Jezebel is a racial stereotype come from? Because that is largely what people were, that's most of what the commentary is surrounding this on. Yeah, James White clapped back at JD Greear saying that he needs to man up, that, he needs to grow a pair of testicles, basically. A.D. Robles had a different take, and I actually liked his take also, and that take was that J.D. Greear knows exactly what he's saying and that he's being a snake. And I think both of them are right, but not both of them are right. But I want to do a different analysis on the situation. Where does the notion that Jezebel is a racist slur come from? So this is where the internet comes in handy and search engines. So I limited the search to January 1st, 2020. I believe by that time Kamala Harris wasn't even a player in the Democrat primary. So there's not a whole lot of results on this subject if you type in Jezebel racial slur. So here are the results I did find. So 2015, April 2015, we got Mammy, Jezebel, Sapphire, or Queen, stereotypes of the African American female. And this is like an atheist blog. So take that for what it's worth. I've never, Skeptic Inc. So yeah, I believe this was an atheist blog. So this is what it says about the Jezebel stereotype. The Jezebel stereotype, also referred to as a sexual siren, is characterized as an African American woman who is as African American women who are overly sexualized, aggressive, and sexually promiscuous, uncaring, completely lacking in virtue, and a woman who will use her sexuality to manipulate and deceive. That's actually a pretty interesting characterization of a Jezebel, because that kind of sounds more like a Delilah, if we want to be most biblically accurate, because Jezebel is a wicked female ruler. That's the caricature of a Jezebel, and that's what people mean when they call Kamala Harris a Jezebel. So here's their evidence for this. And this is pretty funny. The Jezebel image of an African American woman cares for nothing but her own sexual satisfaction, which is the image the media loves. In the former TV series Ally McBeal, the only African American female character was a promiscuous kickboxing assistant district attorney who loves herself more than anything else. Her clothing was tight skin, short suits that revealed and displayed her breast, waist, and thighs, and legs. The gangster rapper Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown wear next to nothing in their music videos, CD covers, and in pictures that accompany interviews given by themselves in magazines. These women, TV producers, writers, pornography executives, etc., exploit and sexualize image of African American women for profit. So that's a pretty interesting tidbit, and yes, there is a lot of critical race theory in this section here. The idea that Jezebel is an exclusively, racial stereotype in reference to a black woman, that certainly does not have a large reflection in culture. And the fact that this is what shows up when I search for it is indicative of the fact that this is not a very widespread stereotype. And I think that I can consider myself an expert on stereotypes, and I've never heard of this. So I don't know anything about the TV series Ally McBeal, but I did some research. I believe this is the character that they're talking about, Renee Raddick. But the show Ally McBeal is best immortalized by Futurama when they made fun of this show as single female lawyer, which was my impression. I looked it up and it turned out to be true, so I feel very proud of myself that was true, that I totally got this connection. So single female lawyer is the premise of Ally McBeal. So it's a very feminist show. It seems like everyone in this show would fit the overly sexual Jezebel stereotype. So, this is very weak. But there's more. Ain't I a Woman? Perceived gender racial microaggressions experienced by black women. So this is a journal, I think. So a peer-reviewed journal. That's what this is. And it came out in August 2016. This was back when the term microaggression was very big. And where does microaggression come from? Political correctness. But microaggressions are ways of finding racism, sexism, all the other isms in very small parts of our culture. So with critical race theory, one of the goals of critical race theory is to show that everything in our culture is racist. And among these things are microaggressions. And I know Robin DiAngelo in White Fragility uses the term microaggression. Microaggression is about political correctness. It is deeply rooted in cultural Marxism. So this study was basically designed to explore gendered racial microaggressions. So we got intersectionality at play. And Jezebel is one of the projected stereotypes. Expectations of the Jezebel. And they also have the angry black woman. So that's their other stereotype that they're studying here. The Jezebel stereotype is perceived as seductive, manipulative, and unable to control sexual desires. The sub-theme represents gendered racial microaggressions where African American women reported feeling exoticized or sexualized by men in school, the workplace, or social settings. They reported that men in these settings often objectified them and assumed that they were promiscuous. Olivia, a 24-year-old graduate student, shared her experience at a local nightclub when a white man approached her and used a slur for promiscuous woman. She stated, "There was one guy, excuse my language, but he was like, yeah, shake that A," I assume that's talking about big booty, "and you big booty H," and he was singing Shake It Fast by Mystical. This is an explicit rap song that possesses lyrics that encourage women to shake their buttocks in front of men for the purpose of obtaining money, basically strippers. This participant shared that she was stunned by this comment and felt that she was being objectified based on sexualized stereotypes that existed about black women. You know what's funny about these stereotypes is that who created these stereotypes? Apparently rap artists. Black men created these stereotypes, or black women also. So it doesn't actually address the origin of these stereotypes. It just addresses that because black women are being objectified, therefore racism, therefore sexism, which, yes, there is an element of sexism here, but what is the etymology of the stereotype? And, rap music has a large role to play in this. Felicia, a 21-year-old senior undergraduate student, provided another example where a man clearly ignored personal boundaries and engaged in sexually objectifying physical behavior without her consent. So in none of these instances were these women called Jezebels. The use of the term Jezebel is completely contrived by this study to exemplify a stereotype that they are studying. It's not a stereotype that exists in popular culture at large. And we see this with such limited search results. It doesn't help that there's a hardcore feminist website called Jezebel. So, back to JD Greear. So JD Greear is adamant that Jezebel is a racial stereotype. However, the notion that Jezebel is a racial stereotype comes right from critical race theorists and feminist theory, which is another branch of critical theory. So that you have critical race theory, which is about racism, and then feminism, which is another branch under critical theory. Both of these combined intersectionality influence JD Greear's view on the term Jezebel. So that's the real story here, is that JD Greear is teaching critical race theory when he says it is unwise to call people Jezebel, specifically Kamala Harris, because of a history of racial stereotyping. But there is no real history of a racial stereotype involving Jezebel. It is a perceived stereotype from critical race theory. So what is influencing JD Greear's words? Critical race theory. And that's my analysis of the situation. I believe that's the larger story here. And this is the case because other people that joined in saying that Tom Buck calling Kamala Harris a Jezebel was racist include Kyle J. Howard and Dwight McKissick, both of whom used Jezebel as a pejorative in the past. So they have no idea. They had no idea that Jezebel was a racial slur until recently. Why? Because they've become more woke since 2016. They've gone deeper into critical race theory since 2016. And so has JD Greear. So that's what I wanted to say about that. My name is Ray. This is the Evangelical Dark Web. If you like this content, do subscribe to this content. For more, also check out evangelicaldarkweb.org, link in the description below, and I will catch you on the next one.